I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this. Honestly, I thought I knew my wife, Sarah, inside and out. We met in college, had a pretty normal, boring relationship for a couple of years, then got engaged. Everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. We had plans, a future, a house. I was building a life I thought was solid. But that's the thing about appearances. They're almost always deceiving. It started about 2 months ago, a little nagging gut feeling I couldn't shake. Sarah had been acting weird, little things really. She'd come home late from work more often than usual, wouldn't answer her phone during dinner, and whenever I tried to talk about her day, she'd shut down or change the subject. I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed, maybe exhausted from her job. But deep down, I knew something was off. One night, I decided to do a little digging. Trusting her was becoming harder with each passing day. I knew some of her passwords, but I'd never thought to look deeper. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I was desperate for answers. That's when I found the photos. It started with a quick glance at her phone, just a casual unlock, and there they were, pictures of her with someone I didn't recognize. The man was laughing, holding her waist, her head tilted toward him in a way that made my stomach tighten. The photos were recent, taken just last week, I think. I could still see the candlelight in the background, their shadows blending in a way that made me sick. My hands felt cold and clammy, like I'd been doused with ice water. I scrolled further. There were messages, flirty, intimate, downright provocative. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She was talking about meeting up, about missing him, using pet names I'd never heard. My throat went dry and my chest felt tight, as if a weight had settled there. How long had this been going on? Was that why she'd been so distant lately? I was furious, crushed, and confused all at once. I confronted her that night. She was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy cooking. Her face was tense, eyes darting around as I threw the phone on the table and pointed at the screen. "Who is this?" I demanded, voice shaky but sharp. She froze, then forced a laugh that sounded more like a choke. "What are you talking about? That's just some stupid photo. You're overthinking." Overthinking. My palms were slick and my heart pounded like a drum. "You're lying," I said. "This is you with him. You've been lying to me for months, haven't you? During our engagement, you were cheating on me with my best friend." Her eyes widened and she opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she looked away, biting her lip as if trying to hide her guilt. That moment was like a punch to the gut. I could feel my jaw tighten, my fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I just stood there trying to process what I'd just uncovered. How long had she been betraying me? How many lies had I swallowed? The betrayal cut deep. I didn't say anything else that night. I just left the kitchen, my mind racing. I sat on the porch, staring at the dark, listening to the distant sounds of the city. My stomach churned as all the pieces fell into place. I thought I knew her, I thought I knew us, but that was the biggest lie of all. Now I had proof. Now I knew. And I knew I couldn't let this go. I had to plan my next move carefully. Because if she thought she was going to get away with it, she was dead wrong. The worst part, the feeling that I'd been played for a fool and that this was only the beginning of what was coming next. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and cold planning. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that night, her lies, the pictures, her face frozen in shock. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, her lips, her hands, the way she looked so carefree in those photos. It felt like a punch to the gut each time. I started noticing more things. Small details, really, but enough to make my skin crawl. Her phone kept buzzing late into the night, and she'd quickly hide it or toss it aside when I came near. Her perfume smelled different, more seductive, like she was trying to hide something. Her clothes had a faint scent of his cologne, something I only noticed after I started paying close attention. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was furious. How dare she lie? How dare she betray me that way? I'd trusted her more than that, I loved her. And she'd played me for a fool. The betrayal was a knife in my back, and I needed to do something about it. One afternoon, I decided to gather evidence, real proof. I bought a simple voice recorder, a tiny device I could hide in my pocket. I didn't want to do anything reckless, but I needed to catch her in the act if I could. If I was going to make her pay, I wanted her to know I'd caught her red-handed. That evening, I played it cool. I asked her if she wanted to watch a movie, sharing a false sense of normalcy. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I kept the recorder in my pocket just in case. As the night wore on, I caught her slipping her phone from her purse again. I followed her into the bedroom, pretending to be distracted by something else. I slipped the recorder out, pressed record, and kept an eye on her. She was texting someone, typing quickly, her fingers trembling slightly. I could hear her voice on the recording whispering things I'd rather forget. She was telling him she couldn't wait to see him, that she missed him. My stomach dropped and my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. She was actively planning the next meetup, just like I'd suspected. The betrayal deepened, and I felt something dark stirring inside me. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was anger sharpening into something else. I knew I had enough evidence now, but I also knew I had to be smart. If I confronted her directly, she might deny everything or worse, destroy the evidence. So I decided to wait. I needed a plan, something that would make her regret every single lie and betrayal, something that would hit her where it hurt. The next step. I started digging into her phone's backup files, carefully copying images, messages, anything that could be useful. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. I needed the upper hand, and I wasn't going to give her the chance to spin her lies. All the while, I felt this gnawing sense of betrayal eating at me. Every breath I took felt like I was wearing a noose. I looked at her, sitting on the couch, pretending to be innocent, and I just wanted to scream. But instead, I kept calm, kept collecting, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Because I knew this wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about what came next. I was done being the fool. I was done being the second choice. And I was ready to make her regret ever crossing me. Tonight, I finally knew what I was going to do. The pieces were in place. The plan was coming together. And once I pulled the trigger, there was no going back. I could already feel the weight of it in my chest, an inevitable explosion waiting to happen. And I knew, one way or another, that this was only the beginning. The plan took shape in my mind, cold, calculated, and final. I spent days piecing together every detail, every lie, every moment I could turn into my weapon. I didn't want to just catch her. I wanted to make her feel the weight of what she'd done. And I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to play the victim anymore. I rented a small, nondescript apartment nearby, just a few blocks away. Not enough for her to suspect, but close enough for me to keep tabs. I bought a few key things, a second phone, a small GPS tracker, and a camera with a long-range lens. I was assembling my arsenal of retribution. One night I left her a note. "We need to talk, come to the apartment, alone." I knew she'd be suspicious. She was smart, too smart. She'd probably try to figure out what I was up to, but I was ready for that. I made sure everything was set up, the recordings, the evidence, the plan. The moment of truth came when I saw her get into her car that evening. I followed at a safe distance, keeping her in sight but not letting her catch me. I activated the GPS tracker on her phone so I'd know her exact location. She headed toward a small, tucked-away restaurant that I knew she loved. My stomach twisted as I parked a few blocks away, watching her through my binoculars. She was meeting him again, I could see. Their silhouettes through the window. Her face lit by candlelight, her hands nervously fidgeting on the table. I took a deep breath and activated the camera, capturing every moment. She looked happy, way too happy. That was the moment I decided I'd had enough of letting her justify her lies. I sat in my car, waiting until she left. When she finally stepped out, I slipped behind her, making sure she didn't notice. As she drove away, I followed at a distance, prepared for what was next. I was ready to confront her face to face, but not before I had one last piece of leverage. They arrived at my apartment building about 20 minutes later. I watched her go inside, my heart pounding. I knew I was about to change everything. This was the end of the line. I planned to walk in, record her admitting everything, and then reveal the evidence I'd collected over the past few days. I took a moment outside the door, gathering myself. I could feel the adrenaline prickling my skin. My palms were sweaty, my stomach a knot. I dialed her on the second phone I'd hidden in my pocket. No answer. Good, that meant I still had control. When she finally came out, she looked surprised to see me standing there. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. I pushed the door open slowly, stepping inside. "We need to talk," I said, voice steady but cold. "And I want the truth now, no more lies." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted. "Save it. I've got everything on tape, every message, every lie, and I know about the affair. You can deny it all you want, but I've got the proof." She staggered back, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I cut her off. "You've been cheating on me with my best friend, lying the whole time, hiding it like some secret. Well, I'm done. I've been done for a while. And now I'm going to make sure you regret this for the rest of your life." She burst into tears, but I didn't feel pity. All I felt was cold fury. I knew this was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment to put everything on the table. I pressed play on my recorder. Her voice filled the room, confessing everything: how she met him, how she lied, how she'd been with him all along. Her words sounded hollow, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "You see," I said, voice devoid of warmth, "you thought you could get away with this, but I'm not going to let you, not anymore." I reached into my pocket, pulling out the folder with all the evidence. "This is just the beginning." Her face crumpled. "Please don't do this." "I didn't mean—" "Too late," I said, turning away. "You want to keep pretending everything's fine, fine, but I'm done pretending I don't see who you really are." I grabbed the keys to her car, handed them to her, and then calmly turned to leave. As I stepped out, I saw her clutch her purse and stumble toward her car. I knew she'd be furious, devastated, maybe even humiliated, but she deserved every second of it. I didn't look back. I just walked away, knowing I'd finally taken control. Because the truth was, she'd been controlling me for too long. Now I had the power, and I was going to use it. Tomorrow I'd file for divorce. But tonight I felt a strange sense of relief, like I had finally shut the door on that chapter of my life. And I knew one thing for sure: I'd never let anyone lie to me like that again. The fallout was immediate and brutal. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train, sharp, persistent ache in my chest, a dull buzz in my head. I didn't sleep much. My mind kept replaying every detail from last night, every lie she told, every moment I caught her red-handed. I knew I had to act fast, so I started calling lawyers, setting up the paperwork for a divorce. Honestly, I didn't feel much like a hero. I felt raw, betrayed, exhausted. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. That night, I went to bed knowing I'd finally done something right. I'd taken back control, and I'd done it on my terms. Still, it wasn't just about ending things. I needed to make sure she understood that I was serious about everything. I decided I'd have her serve the papers at her place. I wanted her to see it coming, to understand that she'd crossed a line she could never come back from. So I drafted the divorce papers, anonymized and clean, ready for her to sign. I even arranged for a process server to deliver everything discreetly. I wanted her to feel the cold weight of consequences, the same way she'd made me feel. While I waited for her to see the papers, I took a moment to breathe. I went for a walk in the park just to clear my head. The air was crisp, the sky overcast, and I could feel the cool wind brushing against my skin. It was like the universe was giving me a quiet moment before the storm. Later that evening, I got the call. She had received the papers. Her voice on the other end was trembling, but she kept trying to act composed. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "This isn't how I wanted things to go." I laughed bitterly. "Too late for that. You lied to me, cheated on me, and pretended like nothing was wrong. You think I'm overreacting? No, I'm finally setting things straight." She cursed, yelled, begged. I could hear it all through the phone. She was trying to guilt me, to make me feel like the villain. But I didn't care. I was done playing nice. I was done pretending I didn't know the truth. The next day I went to the lawyer's office, signed the papers, and handed everything over. I felt like I was finally closing a chapter I never wanted to open in the first place. The weight on my shoulders lifted a little, knowing that I was taking control. But here's the thing. What surprised me most was how her reaction spiraled. She called me repeatedly, crying, begging for forgiveness, promising she'd change. I didn't answer. I knew better. That's when I realized something. The most effective revenge isn't just about exposing the affair or ending the relationship. It's about stripping her of the illusion that she can manipulate the situation anymore. I started packing up my things, moving out of the house we shared. It felt strange, like walking away from a life I'd built with someone I thought I knew. but I knew that staying would only give her more ammunition to manipulate or guilt me into staying. I had to walk away completely. The apartment I rented was small but enough. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty walls, and felt this strange mix of emptiness and relief. I finally saw her for who she really was, someone I had trusted blindly who betrayed that trust for her own selfish reasons. In the quiet that followed, I made a promise to myself. I'd never let anyone lie to me like that again. I'd rebuild, I'd move on, and I'd be more cautious next time. But for now, I was done. Done with her, done with the lies, done with feeling small. I took a deep breath, stared out the window at the gray sky, and knew I'd made the right choice. And you know what? I wasn't going to let her take any more from me. Not my heart, not my dignity, not my future. That chapter was closed, and I was finally stepping into my new beginning. The days that followed were a whirlwind of clearing out the house, settling affairs, and trying to find some semblance of normalcy. Honestly, I felt like I was walking through a fog. Everything was surreal, like I was living someone else's life. Every time I sat alone, I'd find myself remembering the little things, the moments I thought were real, and how easily they had all been dismantled. I kept replaying the entire betrayal in my head, her lies, her sneaking around, the way she'd look at him in those photos. It burned through me, this deep, hot rage that I tried to suppress but couldn't. I didn't want to be that guy. Revenge just felt so sweet, yet so destructive. But I also knew I had to keep my head clear. I needed closure, not just destruction. One thing I did was start to cut her out entirely. No more texts, no calls, no reminders of what we lost. I changed my number, blocked her on everything. I even threw out some of her belongings, things I knew she'd miss, but I didn't care. It was about reclaiming my space, my mind. I couldn't keep her memories cluttering my head, not after everything. The weird part, the way I started to feel lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I could breathe again. It was almost a relief to finally accept that she wasn't the person I thought she was. That realization hit me hard. Love is fragile and trust is a delicate thing. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to do something, anything, to move forward. So I threw myself into work, into hobbies I'd neglected, into long walks. The nights were the worst, laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of betrayal. I'd often wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, cold sweat slicking my palms. I knew I had to face the pain, acknowledge it, then let it go. Because hanging onto it would only trap me. I also realized that revenge, while satisfying, couldn't be my only goal. I needed to rebuild, to find myself again outside of this mess. But I also knew one thing: I wouldn't forget her, not completely. I'd use her betrayal as a lesson. Trust sparingly, love carefully, and never let anyone manipulate me again. One day, I met up with an old friend I hadn't seen in years. We grabbed coffee at the same where I'd once taken her on our first date. As I looked across the table, I felt a strange mix of bitterness and hope. The bitterness reminded me of what I'd lost, but the hope told me I could still find happiness. Maybe not with her, but somewhere else, somewhere better. The biggest lesson: never ignore the signs. I'd always been a trusting guy, maybe too trusting. Looking back, I wish I had paid closer attention to the little red flags she ignored or dismissed. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she avoided talking about certain things. I thought I was crazy, paranoid even. But now I see, those were warnings. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone reading this, it's this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't wait until you're like I was. And if you do get betrayed, don't be afraid to take control, expose the truth, cut out the poison, and rebuild from the ashes. I'm still healing, still learning how to trust again. But I know one thing for sure: I'm better off without her. I don't need someone lying in my bed, sneaking around, hiding their true self. I deserve better. We all do. I'll never forget what she did, but I refuse to let it define me. That chapter is over. I've closed it. Now I focus on moving forward, knowing that some lessons cost dearly but are worth it in the end. It's only in losing what we think we can't live without that we truly realize what we do deserve: honesty, respect, and peace. And I'll find that again someday. I have to. The final act was a quiet but deliberate one. I didn't want any fanfare, no dramatic scenes. I simply took my keys, packed a bag, and walked out the door of the apartment we once shared. I knew that once I handed over the last of her belongings, there'd be no turning back. No more excuses, no more hiding, just a clean break. I went to the lawyer's office first thing in the morning, signed the divorce papers, handed them over, and watched as everything I built with her dissolved into ink and paper. The process was clinical, almost detached, what I needed to do to finally move on. All the pain, all the betrayal, finally sealed away behind those signed documents. Before I left, I called her. Her voice sounded exhausted, like she'd been crying all night. I told her it was over, done, finished. No more lies, no more hiding. I handed her the keys to the house and told her, "This is yours now. Don't call me. Don't try to contact me. I never want to see or hear from you again." She begged, of course, tried to guilt me, promised she'd change, that she still loved me, but I knew better now. Love isn't built on lies, and it sure as hell isn't formed on betrayal. I told her, "You lost me. You threw away everything we had. I don't want any part of the person you've become." As I drove away that final time, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with emptiness, like I'd been holding my breath for too long. The house, the memories, the hopes we once had, they were all gone now. And while part of me mourned what I'd lost, another part was finally free. That evening, I sat in my new place, feeling the quiet of the empty room. No more chaos, no more lies, just me. I looked around at the simple walls and thought about how far I'd come. The pain still lingered, but it was different now, more like a scar than an open wound. Something I'd carry but not let define me. Reflecting on everything, I realized a few things I wish I'd known earlier. Trust is fragile, more fragile than I'd ever believed. When you see the red flags, don't dismiss them. Face the truth head on, even if it hurts, because ignoring the signs only makes the fall harder. To anyone reading who might be in a similar situation, my advice is simple. Don't be afraid to take control. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to cut the poison out completely. Be ruthless if you have to. Protect your sanity, your dignity, your future. Because once you realize your worth, no betrayal can hold you down. In the end, I learned that revenge isn't about retaliation. It's about reclaiming your life and dignity, about turning the page and writing your own story. I may have lost the love I thought was forever, but I gained something more vital: clarity, strength, and the knowledge that I am better off without her lies. So here I am, finally free. I've handed over the keys, signed the papers, and closed the door on that chapter. I don't look back. I look forward, knowing I've done what I needed to do. The pain is still there, sure, but it's quieter now. It's part of me, yes, but it no longer controls me. And that, in the end, is what truly matters.